So if there's a community business and a divorce, what needs to be done and how to divide it and address it? Well, first and foremost, generally in most cases, you're going to need to do a forensic accounting because you need to determine what is the value of the business in order to then be able to divide it. Obviously, you can always try to sell a business, but chances are you or your spouse will go around and keep the business. So if the other party is not going to keep the business, they need to be bought out. So we need to figure out a value in order to determine how we're dividing up the asset. Also, there may be an issue of child and spousal support involved in your divorce case, and a forensic account is necessary to determine the appropriate cash flow available for child and spousal support purposes. And so another reason for a forensic accounting is to help determine that in a California divorce case. So sometimes people mix their marital and business finances, which we call commingling. And in that circumstance, that needs to be untangled in order to separate things appropriately in a divorce case. And so there might be some type of tracing involved, which is determining what money is from where and what needs to be factored out in order to determine what's appropriate in a division of property. But more importantly, going forward, you're going to need to basically separate out the finances so that business finances are business finances and personal finances are personal finance, because you are separating. Your divorce is going to be final at some point. You can't live financially intact. You can't live with a commingled business and personal financial situation. That needs to be all addressed appropriately in your divorce case. So in a divorce case, if you have a business and that's being valued in the divorce, as well as you may have an issue of determining what the cash flow is for support purposes, that'll all get worked out in your divorce case. However, after that, whoever's keeping the business, those monies are that person's money. So if you're earning money from the business, that's your own money. The only relevance of that is if you're earning money and you increase what you're earning and you're making more money, that could lead to increased child support. It's an issue that sometimes happens where somebody gets divorced, they won the business, and then all of a sudden, through whatever efforts, their business income increases, they start paying themselves more. That can have a particular relevance on child support. Spousal support, less likely, because the court would be looking at what the marital standard of living was, not what they're making years from now when they're separated. So let's say you have a community business and you're going through a divorce. You've determined through a forensic accounting what the value of the business is. Let's say it's $1 million. Well, theoretically, that means the other spouse is entitled to $500,000, half of that. How do you get paid that? Well, if there's enough assets of the marriage, there might be money to offset that from other division of assets where you don't have to come up with $500,000. But in some situations, there may not be enough money to do that. So how do you deal with that? Well, what you're going to have to do is either figure out some kind of ability to do a lump sum payout of the other party. That may require getting a loan of some sort through the business to buy out the other party. It may require some kind of payment plan where you pay over a period of time. These are things you'd have to determine and want to discuss with your attorney to figure out what's really realistic in terms of what you can do. What are the options? You yourself as a client would need to also determine, how do I make this work? How do I come up with the money? And that's something that needs to be discussed with the attorney to come up with a viable solution on how you buy out your other spouse. So if you have other questions regarding the challenges of dividing a community business in a divorce case, please contact the Modular Law Firm for more information.